What's the haps? I'm John, aka Meroka, and welcome to Spiel. Welcome to Season 3. Yes, gonna be some changes ahead in the season to come, and I'll get into that in just a moment. We are today in the Silver King stratum, which is fire themed. The Silver King Gate, which is a fire themed stratum, which honestly, it's just kind of dawned on me that a lot of the names, particularly Silver King is a type of beer around here, and it's dawned on me that a lot of the names for the gates that can occur actually are names of beers in the UK. There's it's not so much a beer, I guess, it's a brewery not so far away from me. There's one called the Copper Dragon, which, yeah, you can get that as a gate. There's dragon themes, there's copper themes, yeah, you can have a Copper Dragon. And Silver King as well, indeed. That is actually a type of beer that's brewed also fairly locally, to be honest, so that's kind of interesting coincidence. They have the same naming conventions as the alcohol industry. Well done, Three Rings. So there you go, that's a thing. One other thing to note, I am playing on a different keyboard this week, which might actually be kind of quieter than my usual one. I don't like it. I may have spilled a drink on my other keyboard last night, and now some of the keys have stopped working. That's, I spent some time tinkering with it this morning trying to fix it. I thought maybe I could clean it up. No, I think it's like, maybe like sticky things on the electronics and stuff. I'm not sure whether that's going to fix itself if I just let it sort of dry out. I really hope it does. That's not inspiring. Oh, good lord. Otherwise I'm going to have to go get that fixed, I suppose. I do have a spare keyboard, but it's from a Mac. My mate lent me it a while ago for reasons, and man, this is not a nice keyboard to use compared to my nice mechanical one. Actually, to be fair, this is mechanical as well, but it's a different kind of mechanical. This is like a scissor switch, I think is what they call it, whereas my mechanical is the standard mechanical cherry switches, which are different and more satisfying to press. These may be mechanical, but they're not as satisfying to press. They're not good keys, I wouldn't have said. So yeah, that's unfortunate. I've spent some more time than I would care to admit this morning tinkering with keyboards, trying to get that one working. Whoopsie. Anyway, that's not really any of your concern. This is Season 3. This is what you're here for, Season 3. What is going to be different? Well, one thing I had in my mind for a while is that I was wanting to do it as a charity fundraiser. Obviously, this is inspired by such series as Kurt J. Max Farland's Our Bust, and that is done as a charity fundraiser. And I was like, well, you know what, if I'm going to be rambling every week, might as well be for a good cause, might as well try and do something good for it. And as I've said a couple of times now, Season 3, the goal I want to do is make it a little bit more intellectual, a little bit more educational, hopefully provide something useful, teach you new things each week, hopefully, something more than just asking general inane questions. Not calling you all inane or anything, but some of the questions were just sort of like, what is your favorite color? What is your favorite animal? What is... yeah, a lot of sort of idle chit-chat, I suppose, is what it is, as opposed to anything intellectually stimulating, and I like intellectually stimulating things, so I'm going to try and steer this ship down that kind of route instead. So yeah, we're gonna answer things a little bit more, maybe highbrow, I don't know. Certainly something, I'm hoping to teach people something, and I'm possibly going to be relying quite heavily on Wikipedia for that kind of thing. I tend to do that anyway. I tend to look up a lot of stuff on Wikipedia and read into all sorts of weird and wonderful articles, and I thought that would actually be quite a good cause to support. So the Wikimedia Foundation. The Wikimedia Foundation obviously is run entirely on donations. Every year they have their charity drive. If you go onto Wikipedia, you will see that kind of thing pop up. Once, I don't know exactly what time of year it is. I think the last one was fairly recently, to be honest. But for however long it takes them to reach their goal, at any rate, for a few days, weeks, however long, you'll get a banner at the top of Wikipedia every time you go into it that says, "Hey, we run on donations. Would you like to make a donation? Please donate, because otherwise you won't be able to use Wikipedia anymore." And yeah, quite a considerable amount of their fundraising is done through that every year. And I thought it would be nice to contribute to something that I rely fairly heavily on as a source for learning, and I think it's a great tool that I'm glad that everybody in the world does have access to for learning stuff. And I think it's a fantastic resource, and I think contributions to it are excellent. I think it'd be great to support that kind of thing. Problem is, they don't make it very easy to do so. Going through various options, there's no real good way to do it. There's lots and lots of ways to give money to Wikipedia, or Wikimedia, sorry, rather, at least, which is the company that runs Wikipedia. But there's nothing good from a fundraising perspective. If you want to make a one-off donation, they've got a nice PayPal link, and you can go do that. That's easy. If you want to take a cut out of your wages every month, they can do that. If you want to transfer stocks and shares to them, you can do that. If you want to play in Bitcoin, you can do that. They've got loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of ways to give to Wikimedia, and none of them are good for fundraising. If you think about comparable ones, I mean, obviously the Farlands or Busts, the series inspiring this one. He donates to he's fundraising to fundraising donations for Child's Play charity, which is obviously run by the Penny Arcade guys, raising money to get toys, books, games, etc. Fun things for kids to do into kids' hospitals and stuff, so that children who are in hospital maybe don't have quite such a miserable time in hospital. This is a little bit more of a pleasant stay for them. Which is a great cause. I like that. It's a great charity. They do a lot of good stuff. They've recently expanded into other stuff, but knowing all the details of what they do is not necessarily my remit. But yeah, they do a lot of good stuff, and I think that's a cause worth supporting. And they have a really good fundraising solution. A lot of people do fundraising for them, and including people like Farlands or Bust, and they've got a nice little widget, and you set it up. Indeed, matter of fact, I used it myself when I did Clockworks for Charity last year, just before my streaming capabilities disappeared with my change of internet service provider. And yeah, that's really easy. You set that up and go. It's like that you click on the button and it allows people to make a PayPal donation straight to the charity. No middleman, it's just click on the link, donate to charity. It's all good. And I believe plenty of charities do that, and a lot of charities sort of have integration with other third-party ones, so there's other ways to use the same system through a third-party site, which functionally works exactly the same, and those would be great. And there's obviously Mod, friend from the Strangeland server, is doing, again, a very similar kind of thing, raising money for Papyrus, a charity helping kids, teenagers battling with depression in the UK. Also a great charity, but he's doing that through Just Giving, which is obviously a great site for charity fundraising in and of itself. Do you know which charity you can't raise money for through Just Giving? Yes, it's Wikimedia. God damn it, it's like they don't want money. I mean, they clearly do. I mean, like I say, there's lots and lots and lots of options, but they don't make it easy for anyone to do a charity fundraiser for them. Which is really annoying, because that's exactly what I was wanting to do with this series. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. I will continue to explore my options, but for now we'll carry on doing what we do. For now, this is just going to be Spiral Spiel as you know it. So yeah, there was. Ooh, I just saw a. Was that a lizard or was that a lockbox? I'm not sure. I saw something green on the prize wheel. It could have been either. I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure what colour lockboxes were this month now. That one has slipped me by. At any rate, yeah, let's move on to actually doing some stuff then, because that's what I was wanting to do with the series, and obviously I'm still going to continue with the theme of the series, but any charity fundraising is going to be on the back burner until I can get that one figured out. It may be that there's not a good option for that for Wikimedia, to be honest, and if that's the case, well, that's unfortunate, but not a lot I can do about it, I guess. So, I do have a thank you this week, Lord Chortlesworth, who gave us a nice question last week, also is now a patron of Button Mash, who's supporting my videos over on Patreon, so thank you to him. I presume him, Lords would imply that it's a guy. I don't know what I want here. What gate are we looking at here? And that's not how I get to gates. Gates. I didn't see what we're doing. We are doing jellies. Good job I didn't just rush on in then, isn't it? Because I need a different set of gear for that. Where the heck is it? Jellybane! Equip loadout. Something for fighting the jellies. Cool. Okay, we're good. Let's roll! So, yes. Hello and welcome to Season 3 of Spiel. This is where we're going now. That was quite a long intro, to be honest. I hadn't expected to go quite so long on it, but yes. I suppose if you are new to the series, I'm impressed you carried on watching through the first 10 minutes. If you're new to the series, what I do is I play Spiral Knights. I don't really talk about Spiral Knights so much, but I play a lot of it, and I will talk about other things whilst I'm doing it. So that's cool. I used to talk a lot more about Spiral Knights in the last series, but I'm going to try and stray away from that because I've answered most of the questions dozens of times, and it's getting, like I say, I think there's more interesting things I could talk about and would rather be talking about whilst doing this, because you know, which swords should I equip? I want to go gunning. Which is a good gun is kind of, yeah, I've answered those a few times. Go watch the old videos if you want those kind of questions answered, because I've answered them. They're all pretty much done. I may answer the occasional one once in a while, but honestly, most Spiral Knights themed questions will probably get glossed over in favour of more interesting things for the foreseeable future. So if you want to send me something really interesting to talk about that I can get my get stuck into a bit of research on and learn some background on, then I will talk about those in videos because I will be fascinated by those and interested, and I will be glad to educate you on the subject, such as I can. Because that's fun. That's fun. It's always good to do. So I got a questionnaire from Sky Scythe, which he gave this like probably about 3 months ago now, when he last sent me a wall of questions, and I honestly haven't answered nearly as many of them as I could or should. Perhaps unfair to give all the questions to one guy, so I've answered a few of them, but there's a couple of them that he sent me that were fairly interesting. That I was like, knowing I planned this series on this season a little while in advance, so I kind of had these on the back burner, thinking I will answer these when I get to talking about interesting things, because these are fairly interesting ones that are worth a bit of research on. One was, what are your thoughts on phytoremediation? Why do some see it as controversial? Do you believe it is the way forward? Why or why not? Honestly, I ain't actually heard of phytoremediation before you sent this question. This was when I was like, I need to Google this. I've never heard of this before in my life. This is totally new territory for me. It's quite an interesting thing. So, I'm going to work on the assumption that probably quite a few people haven't heard of it. I mean, I sure as heck hadn't heard of it, so I imagine there'll be more than a few people in the audience probably haven't heard of it either. So, phytoremediation is the process of using plants or microorganisms, various natural biological sources for cleaning up, well, basically how we've screwed the planet. Various human, industrial processes cause a lot of pollution, mining, chemical processing and whatnot, fuels, all sorts of things, cause all sorts of damage and pollutes the soil, the ground, the water sources on the planet. There's lots of places in the world where things are a bit messed up because of, well, stuff humanity has done to the planet, and it's not so great. Fortunately, science has an answer, as it often does. I like science, it's good like that. So science's answer to that is to use specific plants that are well suited for purpose, to basically, if you got... For example, a good example of a video I was watching on the subject is there's somewhere out, it looked out in the desert in the US somewhere, some guy with a very, very strong American drawl going on, talking about how they got like a lot. It was based on ground that was formerly a uranium mine, so there's obviously lots of uranium kind of dust and whatnot got into the ground and soil as part of the mining, and it's polluted the ground, and it's not really suitable. Any groundwater in the area is going to be radioactive and not suitable for human consumption. It's not going to be a great place to use for, well, anything else. So, they kind of want to clean it up. So they had a bunch of shrubs. I'm not entirely sure what they were. I didn't catch the name of it, to be honest. I'm not sure it's necessarily totally important. But what they've done is they've got a series of sort of small shrubs. They weren't terribly tall, maybe about 1 meter tall tops. But apparently the root systems of these plants will go down a good 20 feet into the ground. Because Imperial, why not? What is that? That's about... In real world terms, we're looking about, I guess, 6 to 7 meters, I suppose, there. I think that's about right, if my conversions are accurate. So yeah, again, the roots go down about 6-7 meters, and they will absorb sort of all the groundwater that's it's got uranium and radioactive contaminants in it, and the plants will absorb this. They will be sucked up through the root systems, and well, it just kind of gets stored in the plant, honestly. That's mostly what's going to happen. It'll just kind of get... Plants are great at storing lots of things, basically. They've got lots of space, and any nutrients and stuff just kind of get held there. And if they don't use the chemicals, I think in a lot of cases, they'll just kind of be held in the plants. You'll just end up with a shrub that's got some bits of uranium in it, basically. I think is the ultimate upshot of it. And you leave the plants there, they'll grow, they'll do their things for a few years on end, and it'll sort of, over time, absorb a lot of the uranium out of the ground. And ultimately, over a course of however long, I think this particular process they're expecting to take I don't know, 3 or 4 years, I think it was supposed to take. Over the course of 3 or 4 years, it should slowly bring the ground and water and whatnot back to sort of usable standards that humans can drink the water, potentially. I don't know, it sounds a bit dubious. I don't know who'd actually want to drink that water at that point. It's like, yeah, it's been soaking in uranium for 4 years. Don't worry, we got rid of it all. Are you sure? That sounds a bit dubious. But that is the ultimate goal. Where are we? We're on mechanized miles, so I want something that can fight robots. So a lot of other things like that. There's another video I caught, which was the US military, some fuel processing plant somewhere. They got an operation on. They were growing, I think it was like willow trees. Were really good at absorbing organic compounds, which is like basically like your oils and fuels and things. It's really good at absorbing those. So I think it's willow trees was predominantly what they were planting there. Those are apparently, as a plant, a willow tree is really good at absorbing fuel and stuff out of the ground. So if there's any fuel, as there was in this fuel processing area, they were going to bring that back over the course of a few years back to usable standards. They'd say one of the difficulties with it is it's actually really difficult to say, draw a line and say, yep, that's usable. But I imagine there are standards for these kind of things. You'd be able to take, I presume if you come back every, I don't know, 6 months or so, take a sample of the groundwater and run it through various lab tests, you'd be able to say, yes, this meets certain specifications for human consumption, or no, let's leave those plants going a little bit longer. There's a few different methods by which this works. I mean, if I grab the Wikipedia page on it, there's a few different forms of phytoremediation. As obviously, I think the phytoextraction is the process I've just kind of described, which I think is the simplest, probably the most common one. There's other ones which involve phytostabilization, which reduces the mobility of substances. I don't really quite grasp how that one works, if I'm honest, but basically it seems to reduce the movement of harmful chemicals, so I guess that would stop various chemicals and compounds and things within the plants would basically stop the pollution spreading, if nothing else. You got phytostimulation, which is not the plants necessarily themselves doing anything, so much as plants encouraging microbial systems, sort of microorganisms and sort of things that typically would hang around the plant's roots and stuff. They're the ones that would break down and absorb and deal with the pollution in the ground, and the plants being there is just there sort of as a conduit to encourage those microbes to do their thing. Let's kill the healer. I don't want you. Get out. There's a few different formats that can take. I'm not sure where Sky's coming from on the why is it controversial thing, mind you, because honestly, I can't find a lot of information on it that says this is a particularly controversial process. Like I say, there's a lot of good being done with it, being used in a lot of good places to clean up things like radioactive places where the groundwater is no longer suitable for human consumption, and, you know, they would like it to be. So, seems like it's doing a lot of good as far as I can make out, and honestly, I can't find many people who take a great deal of exception to its use. Honestly, I've looked as well. It's like there's nothing on the Wikipedia page like, oh, controversy, and you know, oftentimes if there's something that's a bit divisive on an issue, there'll often be a section on the page that says controversy. And it's like it tells you who objects to it and why. And nope, there's nothing on there. I've tried searching for I've done Google searches on trying to find people who would object to, and trying to find what objections people might have. I can't find anything, you know? I would really like Sky, can you please send me some links on that or something? Because I don't know who, what, why objects to this. It makes very little sense to me. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of people objecting to it. If you type in, why is phytoremediation bad? Google, for starters, won't even autocorrect it to that. There's like, it doesn't even suggest that one as an answer. It's like, nobody is looking for this. and that's an example of a really bad Google search, which is looking for confirmation bias as well. If I look for why is phytoremediation bad, I should be expecting topics that say, oh, this is terrible for reasons X, Y, Z. I can't find that. All I'm getting is journalistic papers on the uses of phytoremediation, and it's usually just bringing up people who've got the word bad as part of their name, quite frankly. So, yeah, it doesn't seem to be quite as controversial as you might be making out. I know, obviously, if we're talking about optimizing plants for systems in which they could be used for scientific purposes and cleaning up stuff, obviously that lends itself to stuff like genetic modification and selective breeding, that kind of thing, trying to optimize plants for uses. But, and obviously people will take objection to that, I suspect, because some people don't like people playing God. Oh, you can't do genetic modification, it's playing God, that can't be allowed. No, actually. I really wouldn't agree with that. That's kind of a minority, I think, broadly speaking, and those claims are generally unfounded. I mean, I've delved into genetic modification before on this series, insofar as there's a fantastic example of genetically modified corn in the US. There's a type of parasites that will kill corn, and it ruins large swathes of crops. So the scientists bred a variety of corn that is resistant to this parasite. And generally speaking, that will improve things, but the scientist's recommendation is that you should include no more than 25% of your crops. I think absolute maximum, if you really must insist, about half your crops should be this genetically modified one. You should not be using it as your sole crop, because that encourages, in the same way you end up with like superbugs that are resistant to whatever medical treatments and things. What are they called? I can't for the life of me remember what they're called now. Never mind. That's gone. Brain no work. So, yes. Antibiotics, that's what I'm trying to think of, yes. So in the way you've got superbugs that are resistant to antibiotics, so your parasites will eventually adapt and sort of become able to feed on the resistant crops that normally they wouldn't. Normally the parasite would be like, oh, I want to eat this crop, and then be thwarted by whatever genetic modification they had done. In this instance, they have adapted and become resistant to the resistance, and can totally destroy the new crops. And this is as a basis of they didn't leave the natural crops in. Because farmers were like, oh, hey, this crop can be resistant to the thing, I should use all of it. And ultimately now it's completely worthless as a thing, because now the parasite can eat the entire crops. So yeah, basically genetically modified stuff works as long as people are willing to listen to how to use it. Given that this is being used in a principally scientific context, I imagine there shouldn't be any issues, but the problem is when you get it into the hands of laymen who think they know better than the scientists, that can cause issues with genetic modification. Certainly, as I say, I don't hold much store by the people who say, oh, you shouldn't play God. It's like, these are foundless claims, honestly. This is not playing God, it's just science. We have come up with a really, really clever way to clean up our planet, and you would rather live in a radioactive, contaminated wasteland because you don't think we should play God. No, of course we should clean it up. Why wouldn't we? We've got an entire swathe of desert there that's contaminated with the uranium, with an old uranium mine. I don't like this keyboard. I can't grab onto my shield as easily. The shield button, my control button, is much stiffer on this keyboard. It's really difficult to grab shield. Oh, to really put some pressure on it to actually get my shield up. Don't like it, don't like it, don't like it. Do not want. What other weapon do I have? I've got, oh, that's not going to be any good, is it? It's not a good weapon for fighting bunnies. Ah, heck. Right, nuts. Nuts to it. I'm not even fighting the bunnies. Go away, leave me alone. I'm not fighting you. So the downsides of this are obviously there is a fairly slow process because you got to wait for the plants to do it. It's not as quick, but it is a lot cheaper and a lot more natural than any other sort of industrial process. Any other industrial process might be a bit quicker, but it's going to be a lot more expensive, and it's you know, cleaning it up by like planting a forest or something. You know, it's a pretty natural way to clean things up, so it's pretty good in that respect. Oh, let's create a shortcut through there so I can kite things around. And get to all the monies and things. Obviously, monies is important, and items. Must get all the things. These would be so much easier to fight on my other keyboard. I really would. I hope I can get that fixed for next week. That's annoying as all hell. So yeah, I do feel like potentially any claims, just given by the fact that I can't find anybody who's made any claims of controversy and this shouldn't be used, it doesn't seem like they're well-founded, well-vocalized, and widely respected claims. It's probably your fringe nutjob crowd who have very little basis for their reasoning, unfortunately. And yeah, I think it sounds like a pretty good system. From what I found out about it so far, it seems pretty good to me. I mean, if you think about stuff like selective breeding anyway, it's like, this is something mankind has been doing for millennia, to be honest. I mean, not necessarily genetic modification, but selective breeding, certainly. Mankind's been doing this for a long damn time. There's some fantastic sort of infographics that I've seen recently, which there's basically a chemist somewhere. I think he was doing it for his class and stuff, but as a teacher. But they just sort of did the rounds on the internet briefly at one point, which was just comparing how plants have changed over the course of the last 10,000 years or what have you, and looking at stuff like corn. They were like, thousands of years ago, they're like tiny things, and there's barely anything edible in it, and now we've grown them into these large ears of corn and whatnot, like much bigger and juicier and much more useful and edible and things. And stuff like watermelon. Watermelons initially were like the size of, I suppose, what you'd say like a modern day apple, I guess. And there was not much in it that was edible. It was full of seeds, and you could eat it, but it wasn't great. And then over years, we've selectively picked the biggest, juiciest, fruitiest ones, and yeah, now a watermelon is like 98% water or something, where previously it was only like, I don't know, 70% maybe, and full of other stuff. So we have changed things over the years anyway as humans. So it's not really much different to what our ancestors were already doing, saying, "Oh, you're playing God." Well, guess what? Your granddaddy was playing God, and his granddaddy before him, and before him, and before him, and before him, and going back to when we were living in mud huts. They were playing God back then, in a different kind of way, but they were still doing it. So yeah. Your grounds are your claims are ungrounded. That's what I'm going for. So Phytoremediation, good stuffs. I like it. I approve. Science wins again, I think, in my book. So yeah, I may end up dying in the this may be another level where I have to end up ending this dead on the floor, because we're going to have a final room, and I'm not going to have I don't have an emergency revive, and I'm running out of pills. There's a pill, that's good. Cool. Alright, we good. So yeah, let's do some other questions. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and have one big topic for each week, and then a bunch of little questions, because obviously I think people are going to still submit the kind of more idle chit chat kind of questions than the big juicy topics. I would appreciate big juicy topics, but there will be room for others, I suspect. If I get my notes back up, I got. Lord Chortlesworth, my new patron, asks, I apologise it's not intellectual in nature, oh well, at least it isn't Spiral Knights related. What is the most recent movie, game or song that made you teary-eyed? I don't know, I don't tend to go for that kind of thing too often, so, I don't know. I think, I haven't listened to all that much music, and I don't think music ever particularly made me teary-eyed. I don't think any music has ever done that, to be honest. I would say movies. Movies I can't think of many, because I don't watch many movies. So games, certainly there's probably been a few. To the Moon definitely did, because, hey, it's To the Moon. It's impossible to play that one without crying. But that wasn't entirely recently. I think more recent than that, I played... Dust and Elysian Tale, the ending of that one, actually, got me choked up a bit. That was kind of... Yeah, that's probably the most recent one, to be honest. So I can't think... it's not often that happens. I can't think of any movies, certainly no songs. And those are 2 games in recent history that have done that. I sort of thought... I kind of, given the nature of the game, I thought Always Sometimes Monsters might have done that. No, it's a very, very good narrative game, but probably I don't think it ever made me teary-eyed to any extent. It's in the same kind of vein as To the Moon, in that it's just like a fantastic RPG maker narrative kind of thing. They're a different kind of beast, but there's no really teary-eyed bits. I think you could potentially make it that way, because obviously there's a lot of... It's a game that has a lot of choice in it, and the story plays out a lot of different ways depending on what choices you make throughout the story, so it probably has the potential to bring a person to tears. Given my specific playthrough, I can't say it did, so yeah. And one quick one, Alivi! Sorry about my hard-to-pronounce name, who leaves pronunciation Alivi, so I guess that's sort of those. You've probably had this one before, but do you prefer spicy, sweet, or average, neither foods? I don't think I have had that one before, and I am a big sucker for spicy food. Spicy food is my jam, so yeah, that's my thing. I like spicy. Spicy's good. Spicier the better, except when it's too spicy. I mean, I did try, I'd say, like a chili farm. There's like, they had like the Dorset Naga chili, which is like, at the time, was the hottest chili in the world. It's now been outdone, but at the time it was the hottest chili in the world. Yeah, that one, just a tiny bit of jam on a cracker. It's like, or chutney or something, some sort of paste kind of thing. Yeah, that burned for like a good 10 minutes straight. Yeah, that was pretty nasty stuff. Maybe ease off on using that one in your cooking, but generally speaking, I do like spicy food. So yeah, that's that. So that'll do it for this week. That is the start of Season 3. I hope you have enjoyed. I hope it has been at least slightly more intellectual, a little bit more highbrow, a bit more educational, I think is what I'm going for, more so than anything else. So I hope you've learned a few things. I certainly have. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I have been Meroka. This has been a Spiral Spiel. I'll see you next week.